Let's see just how terrifying a top-tier assassin can be. In the John Wick tetralogy, John Wick eliminates a total of 415 people. In the first John Wick film, with a runtime of 101 minutes, John fires 153 shots, dispatching 84 adversaries, averaging 1 kill every 78 seconds. In John Wick, Chapter 2, John eliminates 118 people, making it the fastest killing pace in the entire series, averaging 1 kill every 62 seconds. In John Wick, Chapter 3, Parabellum, John dispatches 84 individuals, averaging 1 kill every 93 seconds. In John Wick, Chapter 4, including the Marquis of the High Table killed at the end, John eliminates 129 people, averaging 1 kill every 79 seconds. Furthermore, after stunning audiences with inventive methods in the first 3 films, John returns to the fray with a new arsenal of techniques, with the Dragon's Breath rounds delivering particularly explosive results. In this nearly 3-hour film, both gunfights and close-quarters combat receive comprehensive upgrades, while the addition of Donnie Yen enriches this visual feast.
Oh yeah.
In the previous film, after being saved by Bowery King, leader of the Soup Kitchen, John begins relentless daily training in the dark underground, for he and Bowery King have decided to seek vengeance against the High Table. Soon, Bowery King appears carrying a brand new ballistic suit, and at this moment, symbols on both sides of the door, once hobo signs meaning safe house or haven, hint that this is Bowery King's sanctuary. Later in the film, this same symbol appears in a bounty hunter's notebook. Then, Bowery King loudly proclaims a declaration of war, ignites the conflict, and toasts John before his quest for vengeance. The Boogeyman will return. As the sun rises, the killing officially begins. The first target is a High Table Elder. John charges into the desert wielding a Glock 34 TTI Combat Master, eliminating all the Elder's bodyguards. The Glock 34 is an extended version of the Glock 17, chambered in 9mm, with a muzzle velocity of 350 meters per second and an effective range between 50 to 100 meters. The Glock 34 TTI is a custom competition firearm by Charon Tactical Innovations, its refined design and high quality resulting in a higher manufacturing cost. John then confronts the Elder, demanding he revoke the bounty and return the ring left by his wife. Unexpectedly, the Elder states the ring has been destroyed. Enraged, John disposes of him with a single shot. Meanwhile, upon learning of this, the High Table dispatches a Marquis, wielding supreme authority, with all High Table members at his command.
I shot him. He lives.
Marquis, respectfully.
He believes Winston deliberately letting John escape caused all this. As the sand in the hourglass dwindles, the Marquis loses patience listening to Winston's defense. He directly strips Winston of his status as hotel manager and then, before his eyes, reduces the Continental New York to rubble. Seeing his life's work destroyed, Winston clenches his fists. But the Marquis declares this punishment insufficient, then expels Winston from the High Table. He further states Winston no longer needs a concierge and executes Charon to make an example. In reality, Lance Reddick, the actor portraying Charon, tragically passed away from heart disease 1 week before the release of John Wick. Chapter 4. After this, the Marquis orders his men to find the assassin Cain, hiding in New York. Though now a retired blind man, he was once a top assassin under the High Table. The Marquis forces him back into service by threatening his daughter. Halfway through feeling the card, Cain knows the target is John. Despite their deep friendship, with his daughter held hostage, Cain reluctantly agrees.
I will serve. I will be of service.
Meanwhile, John had taken refuge at the Osaka Continental in Japan, where the manager Koji was his close friend. Though his daughter Akira warned him to cut ties with John, Koji cannot bear his old friend being hunted by the High Table, so he shelters John secretly.
Friendship means little when it's convenient.
Concurrently, a bounty hunter arrives at the Continental Osaka. After booking a room, he sits in the lobby and opens his notebook. It contains sketches of John and notes planning the bounty's value. Notes reveal his reason for pursuing John: a drawing of a house and a small dog with a number string below, signifying his desire for a peaceful life with the dog, requiring $48.3 million. Thus, he plans for John's bounty to reach $50 million. In the bottom corner is the puppy's name, Daisy. the same name as John's dog in the first film. Soon, assassins sent by the Marquis arrive at the hotel, demanding directly to see manager Koji. Akira knows high-table visitors mean trouble. She immediately orders staff to evacuate guests and heads to the rooftop to find her father. But seeing John there leaves her stunned. Koji knows conflict is inevitable. He tells Akira and John to stay on the roof while he takes bodyguards to the lobby, rallying his staff to arm themselves. During the meeting, Koji attempts pleasantries, but the high-table envoy demands he surrender John and insists on searching the hotel. Facing the Marquis' men, Koji cannot outright refuse. He cites the Continental's iron rule requiring them to surrender weapons, but they refuse on the Marquis' behalf. As the standoff continues, Cain suddenly appears. Koji is surprised to see his old friend. After brief greetings, Koji expects Cain's support, but finds he's also been sent by the Marquis to demand surrender. Seeing this, Koji hits a remote, plunging the hotel into darkness. Immediately, warriors hidden in corners emerge with bows. Confrontation erupts. Cain, invoking past friendship, urges Koji not to act rashly, but Koji is resolved to protect John.
I'm sorry.
With that, Cain turns and leaves. The high table forces instantly assume combat stance. At Koji's command, warriors loose their arrows.
¡Mátenlos a todos!
A major clash begins immediately. Hotel guards wielding melee weapons face well-armed, high-table forces. Though outgunned, suffering heavy casualties, their numbers soon push the attackers back. But before Koji can expel them, a fully armed, high-table reinforcement unit arrives, instantly reversing the situation. Their initial force was merely testing if John was present. This is the true assault. Koji can only order a retreat. At Chidi's command, all high-table members immediately begin searching the hotel. Meanwhile, just as one subordinate was informing Akira that the hotel was under attack, enemies had already searched their way to the rooftop. John reacted instantly, drawing his gun swiftly, and Akira didn't hesitate either, leaping directly onto an enemy to counterattack. John knew full well how tough the armor of these soldiers was, so he deliberately aimed only for the neck and head. Akira's skills were also formidable. She wielded her bow with the ferocity of a longsword, skillfully employing Japanese jujutsu to evade attacks and swiftly subdue opponents. With their exceptional marksmanship and combat prowess, they quickly and efficiently dispatched the armored soldiers, then immediately moved to rendezvous with Koji. Koji had already retreated to the hotel kitchen by this point, sending out 2 sumo wrestlers to cover their rear. As armored soldiers attacked from different directions, both sides immediately engaged in a desperate fight. Cain, however, sat nearby calmly enjoying ramen, seemingly detached from the battle, until Chidi urged him, prompting him to finally join the fray. Cain then made a stylish entrance, firing 2 shots forward to probe their exact locations before quickly dodging into a nearby corner. His blindness made Cain's hearing exceptionally acute. Pinpointing targets by sound, he caught them completely off guard. As more warriors arrived, Cain swiftly felt his way along the wall to a corner and began setting up acoustic sensors. Here's a detail. Accustomed to fighting American assassins, Cain habitually placed the sensors at a relatively high position. But realizing he was facing Japanese opponents this time, he adjusted the sensors lower. After placing the last sensor, Cain used his blind cane to measure height, then positioned his gun at the cane's level to ensure more precise aiming angles. Soon, several warriors pursued him. Despite advancing cautiously, they triggered the preset sensors. Cain wielded a custom Sig Sauer P365 SAS micro-compact pistol. This gun perfectly suited Cain's identity as a blind top-tier assassin because its sights were integrated into the slide. Note that SAS here doesn't refer to Special Air Service, but SIG Anti-Snag, specifically Second Strike night sights designed for reliability. With the sensors aiding him, Cain fired each shot with deadly accuracy. Once his bullets ran out, he used the blind cane itself as a weapon, surprising his opponents, and finished the last one with a rapid series of Wing Chun punches. Unexpectedly, a downed warrior tried to ambush him but was instantly dispatched by Cain with a swift counter-strike. Confirming no further resistance, Cain felt his way out. Meanwhile, John kept eliminating enemies relentlessly, each shot lethal, giving them no chance to retaliate. Akira was also holding her own, fighting 2 at once using her agility, completely on par with John. After successfully killing one, she drew a dagger and grappled with the other, using her flexible physique combined with jujutsu. each strike aimed for lethal precision, finally pinning him down to deliver the killing blow. But just as she stepped down the stairs to help John, she was shot in the abdomen by an armored soldier. Fortunately, John and Koji arrived in time to repel the attackers. Koji urged John to leave the hotel immediately and continue his final hunt. However, upon reaching the lower floor, John was intercepted again by armored soldiers, forcing him to fight while retreating, picking off enemies one shot at a time. But the enemy's armor was too tough, and the bullets could only momentarily stop their attacks, turning the battlefield into a cycle where John kept shooting while the enemies kept getting back up. John had to close the distance, wrench open a helmet, and execute the soldier. After dispatching one enemy, he used his knife and pistol to suppress another, brutally cutting open a seam in the armor, shoving his gun into the man's neck, firing multiple rounds to kill him, then adding a final stab for good measure. With all immediate threats gone, John turned and picked up an assault rifle from the floor. A top-tier assassin never forgets to double tap. After confirming the kills, John pushed forward, only to be blindsided by a massive, high-table brute who grabbed and hurled him across the room. Getting up, John spotted nunchaku fallen from a display case. Seizing them, he counterattacked, throwing one pair to knock down an assailant, then spinning rapidly to deliver 3 powerful strikes to another. The nunchaku complemented John's skills perfectly. He pinned one man's head and unleashed a furious flurry, then swiftly knocked down another who tried to intervene, ultimately disabling both. The relentless fighting had exhausted John. After eliminating the last attacker, he barely had the strength to stand, collapsing to his knees, gasping for air. At that moment, a blind Cain emerged from a display cabinet.
John?
Cain.
Old friends exchanged pleasantries, but only briefly. Cain fired first. John dodged while scavenging weapons along the way, successfully reaching a screen where he grabbed an enemy's pistol, initiating their first direct confrontation. Once assassins engage, past bonds mean nothing. Knife clashed against knife. Gunfire traded for gunfire. Each move aimed to kill, yet each expertly evaded. After a fierce grapple ended in a stalemate, they immediately distanced themselves and exchanged gunfire. But their suits were made from bulletproof materials. Non-lethal hits had little effect on either side. They fought back and forth, switching to melee weapons when ammunition ran dry. Cain's auditory precision countered John's agility. Both predicted each other's moves flawlessly. As they fought evenly, the bounty hunter suddenly appeared, disrupting the balance. He fired repeatedly at Cain, allowing John to seize the moment and escape. No sooner had John exited than he faced another high-table assassin. Reacting instantly, he locked the man in a lethal scissor hold, finished him with a point-blank shot, then took the emblem from his chest and fled. Meanwhile, Koji and his daughter finally escaped outside, but they were immediately intercepted by Cain, who had been waiting. Cain said if they revealed John's location, he would let them go. Though Koji knew facing Cain meant certain death, he refused to betray John by revealing his whereabouts. Cain, left with no choice, attacked. The clash of katana and dual blades made the fight intensely fierce. In the end, Koji was defeated. With his dying breath, Koji begged Cain to spare his daughter, but Akira lunged with her knife, seeking vengeance.
So, live.
Elsewhere, the assassin network raised John's bounty to $20 million. John, now back in New York, found Winston to inquire about the emblem's significance. Learning the Marquis was the mastermind, John declared he would kill the Marquis to regain his freedom. But Winston countered that killing one Marquis would only bring another. Eliminating him required cunning. No one had ever enacted the legend of challenging a high-table member to single combat, but success could demand freedom as a reward. However, a condition of this challenge was being a member of one of the high-table families. Since John had been excommunicated by the Ruska Roma family, he traveled alone to Berlin to seek reinstatement at their headquarters. But the moment he asked the priest to see the head, Pyotr, the priest produced a shotgun and blasted him point blank. Though John wore a bulletproof suit, the impact was so great it knocked him to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. When he regained consciousness, he found himself strung up on a gallows by Ruska Roma members. It turned out that after John killed the high-table elder in the desert, head Pyotr faced repercussions and was executed by the Marquis. The new head was Pyotr's daughter, Katia. She despised both the High Table and John, but the Marquis's power forced the family to remain in service. Hearing this, John declared the Marquis was their common enemy. If Katia restored his family mark, he could kill the Marquis in the duel. Katia was tempted but demanded a price. John must first kill her father's executioner Killa and bring his life in exchange for the mark. Soon John encountered the executioner, Killa, in an underground casino. Katia presented John to Killa as a gift. Killa had anticipated John's arrival, so the blind assassin Cain and the bounty hunter, Mr. Nobody, had already been waiting here for some time. The three men pointed guns at each other, each wanting to claim John as their prey. Seeing the stalemate, Killa suggested deciding the prey's ownership with a game of poker. Mr. Nobody held a straight flush, while Cain got 4 of a kind. 9s. John was unfortunate, drawing the smallest hand, only 2 pairs. Killa naturally had the best hand, 5 2s. Everyone knew full well he was cheating. With just a shared glance, the 3 reached an understanding. John then employed a novel killing method. Only then did Killa realize he'd messed with the wrong man, scrambling to flee in panic. But John seized the moment and shot him multiple times in the backside. The 3 assassins coordinated, instantly igniting chaos in the casino. John then chased Killa all the way to the dance floor. More and more bodyguards tried to intercept, but John eliminated them instantly. Seeing this, Killa took a deep puff of his asthma inhaler, then engaged John in close quarters combat. John once again faced an opponent mismatched in size, getting kicked straight off the balcony. John struggled to his feet only to be surrounded by a large group of bodyguards. This time, his weapon was an axe delivered by the enemy. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Cain and Mr. Nobody, aided by the dog, continuously dispatched enemies. Back with John, Killa had reached the lower floor. His attacks were heavy and powerful, grabbing John and slamming him hard to the ground. This blow injured John significantly. Before he could catch his breath, Killa grabbed him again, pinning him forcefully against a pillar. But he seemed to forget that night is the Boogeyman's domain. Breaking free, John immediately lifted Killa, executed a deadly powerbomb, then pinned him down, punching Killa's face with heavy blows. Just then, more bodyguards arrived. John quickly grabbed the axe and resumed fighting. Killa seized this chance to escape. But John knew his target. Swiftly dealing with the bodyguards, he immediately threw the axe at the fleeing Killa, then ignored any plea, delivering a decisive kick. Killa landed headfirst and died on the spot. John then plucked out one of his gold teeth and left with flair. Shortly after, John returned to the family with Killa's large gold tooth. Katia honored her promise, reinstating John's family status and branding him with the family's unique mark.
Добро пожаловать домой, Giardini.
Soon, Winston, as John's second, delivered the challenge letter to the Marquis. Initially, the Marquis wanted nothing to do with such an insolent challenge. But upon learning John was reinstated into the Ruska Roma family and that the challenge rules were set by the High Table itself and thus unavoidable, the Marquis had to feign composure and accept. Winston also seized the moment to state their terms. Through the challenge, John would unconditionally free himself from the High Table and regain his freedom. He demanded the rebuilding of the Continental New York, with all costs borne by the High Table. Simultaneously, his status as manager must be restored.
Of course. A man second, like his sponsor, either walks out with his champion or is buried beside him.
As his second, Winston knew the immense difficulty of this challenge, but he was determined to stand with John. Early the next morning, John arrived at the Eiffel Tower as agreed. This pre-fight meeting was to decide the time, location, and weapons. The outcome would be determined by drawing cards for high points. The Marquis chose sunrise the next day. John wanted an immediate duel, but his card was lower, forcing it to be set for sunrise the following day. John drew a higher card for location, so he chose the steps of the Sacré-Cœur Basilica. The third round, for weapons, was most critical. Fearing John's marksmanship, the Marquis chose blades. John secured pistols with a draw of 23 points. With everything decided, the non-combatant Marquis proposed Cain fight in his place. The adjudicator then reminded John and Cain they must reach the designated location before sunrise for the duel. Tardiness or absence would mean forfeiture. As the negotiation concluded, the challenge officially entered its countdown. Night fell, and John arrived at the Paris branch of The Soup Kitchen. Bowery King and Winston prepared a new ballistic suit for him and a 9mm Viper pistol. They knew the journey to the meeting point wouldn't be smooth. This night was destined to be extraordinary. The Marquis wasn't idle either. To prevent John from reaching the duel on time, he raised John's bounty to $26 million. This astronomical sum was enough to drive every assassin in the city mad. They brought out their finest killing gear, including Benelli M4 semi-automatic shotguns, specifically effective against ballistic suits. The entire city of Paris was about to become one giant hunting ground. The final battle was imminent. Bowery King transported John via the underground canals to a point as close as possible to Sacré-Cœur. But the moment John stepped onto the street, his location was broadcast live over the Assassin Network radio. Assassins emerged all around, igniting a fierce street battle. In the fight, John barely dodged one car only for another to speed towards him. He jumped onto its hood, using his bulletproof suit for cover to counterattack and eliminate the threat. The subsequent impact, however, injured him badly. Barely managing to stand, another car slammed straight into him. Rising quickly, he seized a gun and returned fire. After dispatching several attackers, John immediately drove toward Sacré-Cœur. But his location was broadcast again in real time. Assassins planned an ambush at the Arc de Triomphe. They split into two groups, converging on the roundabout. John executed a one-handed drift while firing back with his other hand. As he circled, eliminating attackers, two cars driving side by side suddenly rammed him, flipping his vehicle. The violent crash left him dazed. Staggering out of the wreck, he found countless assassins rapidly closing in. John immediately used his suit jacket as a shield, firing back with clean, efficient shots, swiftly clearing the immediate threats. But the fight didn't stop. As darkness enveloped the city, assassins converged like piranhas smelling blood, growing in number. John fought relentlessly amidst the rushing traffic, using speeding cars to his advantage, then seized a chance to commandeer a motorcycle and flee wildly. The radio continued broadcasting his location updates. John had now reached the foot of the hill below the church. Assassins were arriving continuously. Seeing himself trapped between attackers with no escape, John revved his motorcycle's throttle and hurled it as a weapon. He then dropped to his knees, covering his head, fighting while retreating. He subsequently took cover inside a building behind him. The pursuing assassins followed closely. But this dark, confined space was John's specialty. He moved like a phantom, swiftly eliminating his pursuers. Meanwhile, Mr. Nobody had also arrived at the battlefield, continuously helping John eliminate enemies with his dog, because John's bounty still hadn't reached the price he desired. With time running critically short, the Marquis raised the bounty once more to $40 million. The massive sum drove the assassins into a frenzy, flooding the building nonstop. During the struggle, John also acquired a TTI JW4 Drakery's Gen 12 shotgun. The power of Dragon's Breath rounds differs from other ammunition. While not the most powerful, firing them generates intense heat reaching 1,500 degrees Celsius, capable of rapidly searing human skin. Many also see them as fireworks because the magnesium pellets igniting upon contact with oxygen create dazzling sparks upon leaving the barrel. Thus, Dragon's Breath is a weapon combining beauty with lethality. Furthermore, when John used Dragon's Breath to eliminate enemies, many mirrors appeared in the scene. This was intentional by the director, allowing the audience to always see John's figure and track his position clearly. Simultaneously, Mr. Nobody joined this hunt. The two exchanged fire continuously through walls, taking turns probing each other. Soon, both shotguns ran dry. They immediately switched to pistols and continued shooting. They fought while retreating. Mr. Nobody moved through a hole in the wall to get ahead of John. Seeing the danger, John tackled him, and they both crashed down to the floor below. Getting up, they engaged in close quarters combat once more, but John clearly excelled in hand-to-hand skill. He used jujutsu to lock Mr. Nobody down, rendering him immobile and unable to fight back. Just then, the High Table's Chidi suddenly appeared, raising his gun to shoot John. At the critical moment, Mr. Nobody's dog charged in to save the day once again. Seeing this, John quickly rolled over, picked up a weapon from the ground, and aimed it at Mr. Nobody. But the dog was clearly no match for Chidi. As Chidi was about to shoot the dog, John intervened just in time, firing multiple shots that sent Chidi tumbling down the stairs. Yet another wave of assassins surged into the building. To save time, John leaped directly from the 4th floor. He landed hard and couldn't get up for a long time. But time before sunrise was dwindling. Forcing himself up, he started towards the hilltop again. Conquering the 222 steps ahead would bring him to the church. Unsurprisingly, the assassins arrived again. Those 222 steps now seemed to hold 222 killers. John assessed their positions, a counter strategy forming instantly in his mind. He immediately opened fire. Time was nearly gone. John absolutely had to arrive by the sunrise deadline of 6:03 a.m. Gunfire echoed non-stop, his steps never ceasing. Enemies fired relentlessly at John, yet no shot inflicted substantial harm. Relying on superb marksmanship and agility, John fought his way to the halfway point, only to look up and encounter high table forces again. He raised his gun to counter, but a powerful kick sent him tumbling down the stairs. John rolled uncontrollably, ending up back at the very bottom. The step count reset. He had to start all over. Exhausted and battered, John glanced at the stairs, thoughts of giving up flashing through his mind. Just then, a blind Cain tapped his body. It was Cain. He didn't want to win by default. He pulled John up, deciding to accompany him to complete the final duel. Next came the hunting time for the two top assassins. Working in perfect sync, one using a gun, the other his cane, they sent enemies plummeting down the steps. Constant firing quickly depleted John's bullets. He swiftly disassembled his pistol and used the barrel as a thrusting weapon. A master assassin can turn any object at hand into a deadly tool. Reaching the top again, John encountered Chidi. The relentless high-intensity combat had left him utterly drained, and the narrow steps caused both men to fall once more. As Chidi got up, ready to finish John, Mr. Nobody intervened from afar with precise shots, saving John from peril. Immediately after, Cain slid down from above to assist. Cain and Chidi pointed guns at each other in a tense standoff. Cain and John then continued their urgent push towards the church. Chidi, trying to grab a nearby pistol to ambush John, looked up and saw Mr. Nobody and his dog arriving. The sun rose, and John successfully reached the Sacré-Cœur Basilica. Under the adjudicator's witness, he and Cain removed their ballistic suits and picked up the dual pistols produced by Thompson Center Arms. The stainless steel barrel of this gun delivers greater power than standard pistols, even approaching rifle levels, but it is strictly single-shot and manually loaded. Their duel method was also highly classical. They stood back to back, each walked 30 paces, loaded one round at a time, and fired at each other.
Fire!
Fire. The first shot struck both men in the arm simultaneously. They advanced 10 paces and repeated. Fire.
Fire!
The second shot hit Cain in the abdomen, while John was struck in his other arm. The duel continued. The third shot found them only 10 paces apart.
Fire!
Fire. John, shot through the abdomen, collapsed to the ground and couldn't rise for a long time. Everyone present held their breath for him, but as long as John wasn't dead, the duel had to proceed. Just then, the Marquis sought to finish John personally. He took the gun from Cain's hand, loaded a round, and walked towards John.
You arrogant asshole. He didn't shoot. Consequences.
The Marquis lost the duel. John was victorious. Cain was reunited with his daughter as he wished. Winston was also reinstated to his position. The Continental in New York would be rebuilt. John finally gained the freedom he had always craved. The story of the two great assassins reached its satisfying conclusion.
My brother.
Because of a dog's purpose, John's 9-year-long saga of vengeance finally found its resolution at this moment. Struggling to rise from the ground, John said goodbye to his friend Winston, then slowly began removing his gear, for he never wanted to be bound again. Yet he hadn't walked more than a few steps before his strength failed. He fought the pain and slowly sat down. Perhaps it was a final moment of peace. He suddenly felt the world around him was warm, especially the beautiful rising sun. It made him recall his happy times with his wife, but as he thought, he suddenly felt overwhelmingly tired, and finally could no longer hold himself up, collapsing down. In the film's final scene, Winston and Bowery King buried John beside his wife, fulfilling John's only remaining wish.
Do svidaniya, mój syn.
The tattoo on Winston's hand hinted that he might very well have been a member of John's family in his youth. Thus, the film comes to an end, with the conclusion of John Wick. Chapter 4. The franchise takes a temporary pause, but the ending left viewers with the significant question: did John actually die? Some say he died, others say he resides somewhere unknown to all, forever holding on to the memories of his wife. So whether John went to heaven or hell, we can only say, to be continued. Thank you for watching until the very end. If there's something specific you'd like to see covered, let us know in the comments below. See you next time.